Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes here as we have a few more join us. All of you are muted. If you have some specific questions you are hoping to get answered this morning or this afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're in, just use the chat box, and I will try and monitor and watch that, and hopefully we'll get all your questions answered today. We're going to wait just a minute or so here. It's a little bit before start time, so but thank you for joining us. And just a minute or two more, and we'll get started. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to welcome everyone here. Looks like we've got a pretty good group today. I see some names that are familiar and some that are not. And so hopefully you can see my DataMaster screen, and that technology is working. The technology is working today, and we are recording this, so we will take and create some little tutorials off of some of this data, some of this presentation as well. Again, all of you are muted, but if you have a question or comment, just use the text or the chat feature and I'm happy to unmute you and answer any questions that you may have. Today I have a couple of things that I want to show. These are meant to be informative, not real in depth. If there's something that you have a specific question for, you can either ask, and if we don't have time here, I'll be happy to work one-on-one with you, or get somebody that can help. So the first thing that you're looking at is the home page, the landing page for DataMaster. One quick tip I wanted to remind everyone: the upper left-hand corner is there's 3 lines. Those are the menu line for any general settings that apply to every report, every file. Those settings can be made without having a file open from the home page. And if you select settings, you'll see some of those settings are the data sources. This is where your MLS would be listed, your public record, your comp tracker. There's some general settings. This is some functionality for how the software interacts with you specifically. So those would be things like your photo size, even how you navigate from the very beginning. So this is a quick tip. Some of you in your office, you may want to start with the subject property. No problem. If you just come down to navigation, select subject. Now, every time you create a new work file, it will automatically go to the subject tab first. You could go to the market conditions tab or the comparable tab. And depending on how your office functions or your workflow is, you can change this. That reduces a few clicks from getting started. And maybe you have an assistant that starts your files and goes to the subject section first. Maybe when you get in, you're like me and you like to go to the market conditions first, and then work comparables out of the market conditions. So then the next section here would be your market analysis section. You can get public records while you're doing the market analysis. This is one that often will have some areas of the country that you'll want to count your under contract or pending properties as active listings. You can make that change there. You can also designate the number of months that we're going to include in the market analysis graphs and the market analysis data. You can change your graph colors. There's literally, thousands and thousands of color schemes. I would suggest that the data series color be a little bit lighter color than the trend line color. You make your trend line color a little bit darker, will make it a little bit easier to see. And then you can also change your polynomial degree curve here. I wouldn't get really crazy. 2 is the default. 3 might be 3 or 4 might be appropriate. If you get into the 5 or 6 numbers, it becomes really squiggly and probably not very meaningful. If you have just a 1 in this section, that would be a linear trend line, not a polynomial line, and that's how you would get that. So there's some general formatting as well, and also if you want uppercase, lowercase, some of our case settings here. This is one that came up not too long ago, so I thought that I would highlight it. Sometimes there may be a conflict between the age of a comparable and what you thought would be displayed within the report. And you can set whether you want the actual age to be calculated off the sold date or off the effective date of the report. So if I'm doing a retrospective report, say, in fact, I just finished one up where the the homeowner passed away in October 2020, and I'm doing the appraisal now for the estate. So I want my comparables to come in based on the 2020 effective date, October 2020. So if that comparable was 15 years old in 2020, I would set this to effective date, and it would not show that it is 17 years old now. It would show that it was 15 years old. The default is the sold date. That means that if it sold back in 2021, say December of 2021, and the property was 20 years old then, it would come in from DataMaster as being 20 years old, not its actual age today, which would be 21 years old. So this is where you change that. Once you set it, it's going to stay that way until you change it again. By default, we set it to the sold date, which it refers to the sold date of the comparable itself, not the subject, but the comparable. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps with some confusion that there may have been. Any of your comp tracker settings, this is where you invite those to join your comp tracker group, whether they be within your office or outside of your office. Today, we're not going to talk too much about comp tracker, and then your specific appraiser information. So that's the settings and some great tips on getting it to work for your specific workflow. So I'm going to start a new file here. We're just going to work with the 1004. You can select the different appraisers that may be associated with your office. And I have mine set to market analysis. And one of the things that I wanted to show you today was how you can use market analysis, this market analysis section, to help you with some of your analytics, some of your decision making. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is I'm going to load some data that I exported previously out of my MLS for properties that have only one bedroom in gross living area or in GLA. These properties are smaller, older homes where the market may think of them as should have had, or maybe originally had, 2 bedrooms or more in GLA, and now they have one for whatever reason. Maybe a bedroom's been expanded, they've created a family room, or altered the footprint in some way, and so we want to try and determine if there's a functional obsolescence there. So the first thing I did was I went and I looked for properties that just had 1 bedroom in GLA. And in my particular 2-year period that I searched back, I had 47 properties. And then in that same search, I said, give me all the properties that are in that parameter, whether they had 1 bedroom or not. And so I've used the 1 bedroom in my competing market, the neighborhood section, which is just simply another way to analyze a set of data. You don't have to, you can think of this tool as being able to compare 2 different data sets against each other. So now I'm going to add in the data for all properties in that area. And I think we ended up with about 500, just under 500 listings. About 10% of those, or 47 of them, had only one bedroom, which is an interesting, interesting fact to be able to maybe talk about in an appraisal, that about 10% of my properties do not have this 1 bedroom. So you can see here across the top, there's 480 properties that are included in this second data set. In the competing market, there were 47, so just about 10%. And then we can look at in the neighborhood section, And those 1-bedroom units are going to be displayed here in the market graph, and the neighborhood graph is going to be the other, all of the 480. And you can see those graphs side by side. Here's the list to sale price. Here's the list sale price on this side, the price per square foot. And you can see that maybe they're a little bit more stable. We've got this one outlier. Maybe go and take a look at that property and see what happened with that one. You can also go to the summary graph, and the difference in the trend line here versus the trend line of those that only had one bedroom in GLA. Also, the 1-bedroom GLA, you can look at the average price per square foot, the average size of those properties, 799 square feet. That would be in GLA, and how many of them sell on a monthly basis. Now, because I brought in a little over 2 years worth of data and my graphs are set for 2 years, then I get 2 years worth of 24 months worth of data broken out. That's how you expand out. If I wanted to look at just 12 months, I would go back to my settings, to my market analysis, and change this to 12 months or 18 months. You can put as many months in there as you want, so that it will, it's very customizable for you. So that's one way where we can use this tool, this section, market analysis section, to analyze two distinct differences or some features that you're trying to isolate and see if the marketing time is going to be the same. We can see here on our summary graph. I'm going to expand this so that it's a little bit easier to see. Let's see. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that you can read it a little bit more. So remember, the neighborhood section here is all properties, and the competing market is just those 1-bedroom. We can see that days on market is very similar, so maybe there's not really a functional change. Maybe the market accepts them the same. There is a price point difference. The previous 13 to 24 months, they were selling for around $240 in this particular case. The last 0 to 12 months, they were $285. It seems like the whole market, when we had at least 2 bedrooms, were in the 200 or the 250, and then the 317 price point. The price per square foot, you can see the list to sale price ratio. We actually got a little bit more. They were a little more competitive, a little bit above list price if it didn't only have 1 bedroom. The units are about the same size, this 800 square foot. The average age is very similar. The total number of bedrooms, so this means in my particular market that they only had 1 bedroom in GLA, but they had 2 other bedrooms in the basement. So they still had 3 bedrooms. In this case, on the whole market, I could interpret this that they had same number of bedrooms, but two above grade and 1 in the basement. This is a great little summary comparison chart that you can then use that data within your report to kind of draw your conclusions and support your conclusions. You can use this in a lot of different cases. I use it with on golf course, off or golf course, busy street, non-busy street. This is a great tool to do a kind of a grouped paired analysis, group paired sales analysis. You could do it with larger lots, maybe half acre versus 3/4 of an acre. However you might need to analyze that market, that specific market change. with garage, without garage, no off-street parking, off-street parking. I can think of lots of scenarios in which I can compare and then get a graphical representation of how those react. Here's the days on market, the total number of listings versus sales. There are 28 different graphs that break this down. You could look at the average sale price versus median. I like looking at the median. So that's just one area, one tip on how you may be able to use this. I'm going to enter now a subject properties. We've had questions sometimes on how to get the subject information in or the subject data in. You can do it by address or by APN number or by MLS number. I would suspect that right now, most of the assignments that we're getting, especially from lenders, are for properties that are purchases. The refinance market in the last 6 weeks or so has gone away with the interest rates increasing. So I'm just going to enter in an active listing, an MLS listing, and get our subject property. And then I wanted to show you a tip or a way that you can move comparables in without going back into your MLS. So I could go back and search the MLS and find some of these one bedroom properties. My subject property has just 1 bedroom in GLA, as you can see highlighted here on the left hand side. And so I'm going to go to add properties, and I'm going to say get from the market analysis. So my market analysis already has only 1 bedroom properties that only have 1 bedroom in their GLA. I'm going to sort by close date. So by clicking on the title, I get the most recent sales first. And then I can see the GLA. So I have a lot of information here. So I'm going to pick this one on 23rd Street that's close to my subject. I'm going to pick this one on Oak, which is close to my subject. And let's pick this one on Liberty. We'll bring those in. And then we do have an active or an under contract. Let's bring this one in. And so we have these 4 that we're going to bring in by simply clicking the box next to it. I can say add to the comparable, and DataMaster is going to go back out to the MLS and bring those properties in. This is a great time saver if you're looking for something very specific. So there's those comparables. You can see how close they are to the subject property. We can also look if there was something else that specifically I was looking for. Maybe I want one on 21st Street. I can go to the map, and this might take a minute, just depending on how much data you have in your MC. But you can see the different properties that are mapped there. Now I'm going to say, show me the MC data. And so it's going to take just a second. It's geocoding all of those properties that were in the market conditions. This becomes very helpful if you're trying to find something, say, on a busy street, or something specific that did back a golf course or power lines or something like that. And it's a lot of times easier to find that here in DataMaster once you've brought the bulk of the data in, you've exported it out of the MLS, than it is to try to find it within the MLS. A lot of times I find it faster this way. It's just going to take a second here to geolocate each of those properties, and you're going to see them come in as little blue dots. We'll give it just a second here. I know it's still working because it tells me up here at the top that it's geocoding them. Looks like we've had a few more join us while it's doing this. Thank you for coming. And if you've got some questions, just use the chat box and you can either that, or I think you can raise your hand also, and I can unmute. I can unmute you if you've got a question. Sorry, this is taking a second. I can't remember if this is something that we do in the background, if I can have it on all the time or not. And I don't remember if I toggle off of it, if it regenerates it once I go back to it. There we go. So here's all of those properties that were in the MC. And it's also giving me the ones that are in the neighborhood section as well. So you can see each of these, and I've scrolled way in. We're going to get here to our subject property, which was on 21st Street. Let's say that I was looking for something a little bit closer in proximity. Well, I've got this one right here. I can click on or hover over that blue dot and it will tell me what the address was. Here's one on 21st Street. Then I can go and find that property. We can see, if I was looking for something specific, here's all of the properties that are in that market and neighborhood analysis. So that can become a helpful, useful tool if you're looking for something really specific and more granular, and trying to analyze something specific. So hopefully that helps. We'll go back here to the sales grid. We've had questions on how to add an addendum. So you've been asked to do a rent analysis, or they want your listings to be in a separate addendum. So on the menu line or the menu tab here, you can go to addendum and you just add your listing addendum. And then I can add properties either from the comparable. So that number 4 was my active listing. I can click it, use it at the comp, and now it's going to move it from the sales grid to the active listing grid. It's the same thing on the single family rental analysis. I can add that addendum. So now I have sales, listing, and rental. And I can add from the grid. I can add from an MLS export file. I can add from a specific MLS number. And let's say that that I had a group of numbers that I wanted to add. If I add them in a string, I'm gonna go back over and add these in the sales grid just to show you how this works. If we're entering comparables from an export file, by default, DataMaster is going to list the most recent sale first, all the way to the oldest active listing. So it'll be the most recent comparable, most recent sale, and then the most recent under contract, and then active listings is kind of the waterfall way. However, if you enter the MLS number by hand, then we're going to put them in the order in which you enter them. So if you've already picked and say, I want this to be my comp number 1, 2, and 3, then just type in the MLS numbers in the order in which you want them. And now DataMaster is going to put them in that order, not in the order most recent sale to least recent sale. So that's how you get them in. in the order in which you want them to be in. We can see that this comp number 6 here sold in June, comp number 5 sold in January, comp number 4 sold in July. So they're now kind of out of order from date of sale. And that's how you would get those in. So one other thing I wanted to show you, sometimes when you're doing, when you're trying to find some paired sales for, say, a time adjustment, or maybe there's another feature and you'd really like to have a repeat sale of the same property, DataMaster can help you with that. So if you go to the Market Analysis tab, I'm going to use that neighborhood data that has a lot of properties in it, 480 properties over the last 2 years. I'm going to go to the Detail tab, and I'm going to sort. So all of these columns are movable. You can change them around, put them in the order that you want them to be in. You can also click on them and you can sort by the column. If you double click, it'll reverse sort. So here's the most recent sales. So let's say that I want to try and find some duplicate sales of the same property to see whether or not how much of an impact maybe a remodel's had or the change in market has had. So I'm going to sort by address. And what we'll do is we'll look, and here I have number 3 and number 4 are exactly the same property. One sold in September, one sold in July. I could then bring these two into my grid. It looks like there's about a $25,000 difference between the previous sale and the current, and the 2 sales that are almost a year apart. I can look at those then and say, okay, what changed with those properties? I can bring them into the grid, look at their photos. So I've got one pair there. Here's another pair. And I didn't really plan this. I was just hoping that there would be some pairs. Here's another pair. Now, if the MLS number had been the same, here's another pair. If the MLS number had been the same, then we would not have identified it as a separate listing. So the first thing that we look at is an MLS listing. If I were to reload this data again, it's going to make sure that there's no duplicate listings. But for example, this one, number 18 and 19, it sold in October, and now it's active listing again, or actually it's been withdrawn, so it never sold. It was active 4 to 6 months ago. But this is a useful way that you can find some duplicate sales. Here's another one, number 42 and number 43. One sold, one is active now. It's interesting. The active listings actually listed less than what the sale price was just recently. That'd be an interesting one to look at and maybe see what the market is doing for that particular property. But that's a helpful way that you can find, and it's a lot easier to do it here than to do it in most of the MLS systems. So I would just go in and I would say, give me 2 years worth of data in your farm list, export all of those out into a export file, and then move them into the market or neighborhood analysis tab, go to the detail tab, and then sort by address, and you'll be able to find those duplicate or resale properties with the same address. Here's another one, 99 and 100. This one actually has 3 separate listings. It had a listing. It sold in, looks like January. Let's see, January 2021, then May 2021, and now it's back on the market. And we can see the changes there and take a look at those. So hopefully that is something that will become useful for you in the near future if you're trying to look for some of those properties that have sold several times in the last couple of years. If you haven't spent a lot of time in the market analysis tool, I would suggest that you kind of get familiar with this tool. There's a lot of changes coming in the near future. I think with the new Fannie Mae reports, where the neighborhood analysis, market analysis is going to become a more primary part of our reporting and part of our scope of work for them. And this tool's already built to support and help analyze that for you. One of the things that I like about this tool is that it can tell me what the status was of different listings in different time periods, and that becomes very, very useful as I'm trying to determine my trend, make my trend analysis. So let's see, those were the things that I had to kind of go through today for you. One other thing that kind of came up earlier, you can move data now into an existing report. We've added a new function and feature that many of you that may have had our classic product or in your area have this feature before, and we've added it in, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. If you go to the review and send tab, let's say that I've already added 4 comparables into my report, and the underwriter wants me to consider these other comparables, number 5 and number 6. I can go to edit the comparables. I can unselect all of them and now only move number 5 and number 6 into the report. I can also change where I want them to go. So if I wanted there to a blank spot to be between 5 and 6, so let's say I want number 5 to come into the number 6 slot and number 6 to come into the number 7 slot, they will move, and there would be a blank number 5 spot on the grid in my report as kind of a buffer there. You can move them to any, as long as there's not a conflict. So you notice that if I select a comparable where there's a conflict, then it highlights with red and will become a conflict. Let me get this back in. You'll see that there's a red box around this now saying, oh, we have a conflict. There's 2 going into the same slot. So we have to fix that conflict before we send them in. That's what that red outline means. So that's how you move something in to an existing report without overriding the data that's already in that particular report. In the review section, edit, it's now telling me that I'm only sending 2 properties to the report. I don't want to send the subject information. I've already sent that, and I don't want to send the market analysis information. I've already sent that. That's how you would move that into an existing report. So hopefully that little tip helps as well. Let's see, are there any questions? I don't see anything in the chat. No hands raised. I don't even know if we can raise hands here. I'll wait for just a second. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Lauren, let me allow you to speak. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Go ahead, Lauren.
Hey, so do you, in your workflow, do you use, so when they do come back and say, review these comparables, these extra sales, whatever, do you go into your analysis and just find them and then just enter them in that way? Or do you, does that make sense? So go into the neighborhood or the competing market and see if they're in that big list of data and then just enter them in that way?
I usually will just enter them in the grid by the address that they give me to look for. I find a lot of times they're giving me comparables that were not in my original analysis because maybe they're so different. Good example, and this is a great question, Lauren. I appreciate you bringing that up. I had one not too long ago that the sale price was different than my analysis, and that's usually what we're getting, right? Is that, you know, there's a sale price, property sold for, you know, say 400,000, and I came, you know, my analysis was 375, so they give me they give me two sales that are 425 and 450. Well, they weren't in my original analysis because they're newer, or they were bigger, or they were a different style, or they were outside my neighborhood delineation, you know, the boundaries. And so they're probably not going to be in this market analysis data. They're probably not in this set of data, because if they were, I would have probably had them originally. And so I just will go in here and just type in the address that they give me, and it would pull up the MLS listing. And then it's great because you can really see, oh, this is, you know, twice as big, or it's horse property and the subject wasn't horse property. It makes it really easy to be able to say why I did or did not, why I did or did not consider that property originally. So great question.
Well, thanks.
And anybody have any other questions? I mean, there's a lot of power here, and I don't want to do too much and overwhelm you. We do these every other week, every other Tuesday. And I just kind of pick an area based on what the sales team or our customer support team is identifying as some challenges, and we'll talk through those. I am noticing in my particular appraisal work that it seems like underwriters have a lot more time on their hands right now, and so we are getting a few more revision requests or reconsideration of value requests, and I think having the work file, having all of this in really saves time for me when I can go back to my DataMaster file to answer those questions. I don't have to go back into the MLS. You know, I can go and look at those photos, remember why I did what I did in the work file. And I really use this as my digital work file. Everything is here. I think next week we'll focus on some customizations again. And this, as things slow down, I've spent a lot of time on my customizations for my non-lender forms. So my general purpose forms that I like to use, I'm starting to get those customized because a lot more of my work is shifting in that direction. I'm also doing a lot more retrospective work right now. Not sure why, but particular list that I happen to be on, I'm doing some retrospective work. And just so that you know, you can reset the effective date. If you just click on the calendar, you can click on and either just go back by months, or if you click on the month and the year, like for example, the one I was telling you about earlier, I was doing October 31st. It changes all the data, and I don't think I have much data beyond October 31st on this particular data set. So you're going to see the graphs are going to look very interesting as it's going through right now and looking at everything based on that effective date instead of the current date. And let's see for what, yeah, see, our graphs don't look very good because there's not 2 years worth of data in front of, or before this effective date. We can see that there was just a little bit of a few listings that were in that data set. Active listings, not very many solds. But that's one tip I would say is if you're doing some retrospective stuff, before you put your data in, set your effective date. Whatever the effective date is, set that first, then put your data in. It'll go faster. The rendering of the data, the analysis of the data will be faster. You can also bring in multiple data sets. So if you had, if your MLS limits you to only exporting a certain number of listings at one particular time. So for example, my MLS, it will only let me export out 600 listings at a time. And if I'm doing a 3-year analysis or a 5-year analysis, you know, I may have 2,000 listings during that period of time. So I'm going to have to export out several different exports. And what DataMaster does is it will allow you to bring in as many imports as you need. So if I go to get comps and I go and say I want some more neighborhood, and let's say, let me find a couple of them here. Let's see. This is where I'm going off script a little bit and looking for a couple of specific files, and my mouse is not working. It's not scrolling. Here we go. Okay, so in this particular one here, I had to do 3 different neighborhoods to bring all the data in. So if I say I want to bring this one in, it's going to say, uh-oh, there's already some data in here. What do you want us to do? Do you want to append the existing records, or do you want to replace them? So by clicking no, it would replace all this data, or append, it will add to it. So it's going to add. And now instead of 480 listings, I don't know how many were in this set. There'll probably be over 1,000 because I would assume I did 600 in this first set. So you can continue to add sets of data in, and there's no limit to how much you can bring in. If you, let's say you do an extensive study of golf courses, and you want to have one folder, one file set up just for your golf course analysis, and you want to continually add to that on and off golf course, so you build several years worth of data, you can do that. So now I have 1,000 properties in this set. I can go in and we'll find that same one. We'll add the next set to it. It's going to ask me the same thing. I'm going to append it. So that's how that works, to be able to get multiple data sets in at one particular time. So. Well, thank you very much for joining. And I look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. If you have some specific questions, I'll put my contact information in the message to everyone. And if you want to reach out to me if something comes up, I'm happy to visit with you. There's my information. Please reach out to me, and I'm happy to help. And hopefully we'll see you at one of the conventions down the road. I'll stay on for just a few minutes in case there's anybody else that has any other questions. So thank you. Have a great day.
Hungry, hungry.